That's a serious challenge right now that a lot of operators are having, and that is they're having a liquidity challenge, right?
Welcome to the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about creating more time freedom through passive real estate investing. Passive investing in real estate challenges conventional investment wisdom. We are passionate about learning and sharing resources with others who are ready to transform their investing mindset. Quick disclaimer as always, I am not a CPA, I am not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer, ADP. I'm glad you're here. Now let's dig in.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Drew McWilliams, and I will be your host alongside my partner, Jeremy DYER. Jeremy, thanks for joining us today, and appreciate you being here.
Glad to be here, Drew, and surprise, surprise, talking about real estate syndications.
How about that? Well, good. I know we talk quite frequently, but give me a high-level overview of what's latest in your world, and then we'll kind of dive into some of the topics that you and I have discussed for today.
Yeah, absolutely. Be happy to. So one thing that Drew and I have in common, although he's in North Carolina and I'm in Minnesota, is our kids are back in full swing into the hockey scene again. So I'm now entering that 4.5-month period of my life where I'm busier in the evenings and the weekends than I am during the day with my day job.
I'm in the exact same boat as we share that same commonality where my 11-year-old son is back full swing into the ice hockey world. By living in the South, we have very, very few ice rinks. So
that's one big difference between us is you guys have to travel hours to meet up with an opponent, and we have to travel like minutes to meet up with an opponent. So what do you got for us today?
I would love to talk about, real estate syndications. I know we talk about that on every podcast, but let's just be more general, because why are there so many people out there that don't know about this world?
Yeah, I would say I probably get that question a lot too. And it's kind of that aha moment, where I'm talking with a potential new investor. A lot of times investors say, Jeremy, why have I never heard about this before? The reason why is because most of the investment opportunities that we look to partner with investors on are what are called 506B Regulation D offerings, which is basically like a section of the Securities and Exchange Commission code. People that are looking to raise investor capital or private money really prohibits them from being able to advertise those opportunities in the public domain. Second to that, financial advisors really have to, sell products and services that their own firms or brokerages, for that matter, are allowed to sell, right? And within the real estate syndication space, you can't get paid a commission, for placing capital into a private placement opportunity, which is what a real estate syndication opportunity is. And so that's really the genesis of why a lot of people haven't heard about this type of an investing strategy, is strictly because the financial advisor community is prohibited to really talk about it, number one. But number two, you have to have a pre-existing relationship with somebody that sits at the investor sponsorship level or the fund manager level for that specific opportunity.
Thank you for unpacking that. That's great. All right, so let's go down the world of once somebody knows about real estate syndications and these type of investments, who do you listen to, right? Because you and I are two voices. We're out there, on podcasting right now. There's a lot of voices out there, right? How do people know, and how do you filter through who to listen to and who not to listen to? I don't want to tell everybody that we're like the single voice of truth, but there's a lot of different voices out there, and it can get confusing for folks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for most people that are looking to invest, passively into real estate, obviously it comes down to, the track record of the sponsor, the trust, the transparency, all those things are really important. But most investors, I think, will choose to deploy capital into a passive real estate investment opportunity because they were referred into one of them. So I think credibility, is a huge component to that, but you're exactly right. I mean, you can go to google.com and you can learn about all kinds of different offerings out there. There's plenty, of syndication sponsors in the space today that are spending a lot of money advertising their companies, right? But it really comes down to, in this space, establishing that relationship with somebody that sits at the sponsor level, somebody that you can have a direct one-on-one conversation with, where they understand what your goals are and they can really unpack, what that specific investment opportunity entails and really ask due diligence related questions. Because really, at the end of the day, every investor, it's really their responsibility to do their own due diligence. So if you don't have someone that you can have that direct one-on-one conversation with, that I would say is ultimately the most important thing, when taking a look at one sponsor versus another, is really, kind of the devil's in the details, so to speak.
Yeah. And I know we've said this on and on again, but people will choose to invest with those that they know, like, and trust. And I know that is a very big deal for us, as we have a very high ethics bar and a very straight moral compass. And I'll tell you the other thing, when talking to sponsors or capital raisers like ourselves that put opportunities in front of people, I think it's extremely important that people don't gloss over the question of, are you equally putting your personal money into this deal? And I know that is a very, very big deal for myself and those investors that I work with. And I think that's a big deal for folks should ask that question. You'll see really how much people really believe in the product that they're pushing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just, our Jeremy and Drew, putting our own, capital into the opportunity, because in most cases, when we're raising capital for an investment project, we certainly have an alignment of interest. We've got our own skin in the game. We've done our own due diligence on that property. But the other side of that is the lead sponsor, right? The actual team, that's managing that value add, business plan. Are they also putting their own, money into that investment opportunity? And I traditionally like to see anywhere from a 3 to 5%, capital commitment from the lead sponsors or the syndication team on any given, investment opportunity, because then again, that shows me that there's a true alignment of interest, not just from the guys that are, presenting the opportunity, but also the actual lead sponsors, the people that have their actual boots on the ground managing that value add business plan. There's a couple of other things that I'd like to highlight. We talk about track record a lot. Just because a sponsor might have had a good track record in the past does not necessarily mean that they're going to have a good track record in the future. Why? Because the landscape has changed. Has that sponsor been battle tested? Okay, that's a serious challenge right now that a lot of operators are having, and that is they're having a liquidity challenge, right? And when you have a liquidity challenge, you're really faced with kind of three options as a sponsor, and the investors need to be prepared for any one of these three options to occur. Number one, the sponsor might require a capital call, okay, in which case they need additional liquidity to be pumped into the deal, from the limited partner investors. Another potential option is that maybe they're forced to sell. Maybe the bank says, you need to put this property on the market because your debt service coverage ratio is at or below 1. And it's really time then for that sponsor to look to potentially sell that asset at a loss. And then really the third, potential option, or what could happen, is there could be a foreclosure, right? It's usually a hostile takeover. The bank takes over the asset and the investors ultimately, lose in that game as well. So it really comes down to, you putting your faith and trust in the sponsor's ability to preserve your capital and to produce a return that meets or exceeds, what they originally projected on their deal deck.
I know we're a big believer in continuous education. You and I have a free ebook download. It's a free 25-page ebook download on our website of startingpointcapital.com. If you want it, go grab it. And it is a free download for you to be able to do. So if you want more information, please feel free to reach out to either one of us. Jeremy and I are both pretty active on LinkedIn, and all of our contact information can be found at startingpointcapital.com. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the Freedom Point podcast, powered by Starting Point Capital. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decision, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the Freedom Point podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. If you're interested in connecting, you can find contact information at startingpointcapital.com.